the gridiron to the pitch, that's the main switch. I'm breaking down the blitz, you're checking stats in it. He calls it a proper field goal, I calls it a money shot. Giza analyzing the snap, a transatlantic plan for the pigskin. We see the same game with two different sets of proper eyes. From London to the concrete jungle, watching the legends rise. It's the Yankee and the Brit, the transatlantic hit. That's the play action pass, yeah, you know it's a solid fit.
Everybody, I'm Jay. He's mad. It's the Yankee and the Brit. We just did round 1 of the NFL draft. How are you feeling after round 1?
Yeah, I mean, I hope everybody's feeling great after round 1. It was a fun round 1. I think we got set up in a way that we didn't know what most teams were going to do on the way into the draft. And things fell well for my Dallas Cowboys. If any of you guys watched the show yesterday that I did, I said the Cowboys need to do anything to get Caleb down. So I am happy with the way that the draft fell. And, you know, it was an exciting draft. What did you make of draft night, Jay?
Maddie, I got a quick technical question. Did you add both views to this stream?
I think so. Maybe.
Oh, well, we're going to get throttled. So everybody who doesn't see us, I'm sorry. YouTube's new thing is pick one or the other, or they throttle it down.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, I mean, we could just come out and come back in again and set up right.
We'd have to set the whole thing up again all over.
Okay, we'll leave it. We'll leave it. We'll just go. Oh, that's crazy.
We'll be fine, but I was just noticing I got 2 screens going, and I'm like, wait, what? Okay.
Apologies. My bad. Okay. Well,
no worries.
Let's get on. But yeah, guys, you're seeing things in real time. Yeah, good draft. I thought Pittsburgh, you know, it's one of the cities that I would actually quite enjoy going to in the US. I think it looks like Pittsburgh put on a great show. The biggest, that was the biggest turnout in NFL draft history of like 320,000 people on the first night of the draft, but they seem to break that record every single time. Jay, how do you think draft night went?
I want to know how they know it's 320,000. I was at a draft and ain't nobody counting you when you come in. That's what I want to know. I want to know how they know, but it was an interesting draft for me.
Yeah, interesting draft for the Vikings, or just an interesting draft as the whole draft in general?
Well, the whole draft is interesting just because of the positional value isn't as important this year because there's only a handful of blue chip guys. But I was very interested by a very certain team that had some really good ammo that I think really shit the bed.
Let's get into it and then we can talk more about them, Jay. But let's talk about the most surprising picks of the draft so far. I kind of just compiled a list of the most surprising picks that I thought that we could just kind of have a chat through, and you can jump in at any time to add any of your most surprising ones as well. But Jay, the first one started in pick 2, you could even say was slightly surprising, but pick 3, Jeremiah Love being taken by the Arizona Cardinals at number 3 overall. Jay, you actually quite like this pick. You think that Jeremiah Love is one that is going to be a generational style running back. I think that this was surprising that the Cardinals weren't able to trade back, and the fit for the Cardinals here isn't great. But Jay, what do you make of the trade? What do you make of the pick at number 3?
I think if you're a generational guy on the board, you get him. If the Vikings would have listened to everybody, they don't get Adrian Peterson. If the Panthers don't listen, they never end up with Christian McCaffrey. Like, if there's generational talents, you go and grab them. I gotta hit a rewind button. I gotta ask, because it's crazy to me. Why would you think that the second overall pick was one of those picks?
Well, I didn't put it on this list because I didn't think it was too surprising, but because I didn't think it was surprising, that's who I would have taken as well. But other people were saying that,
That's who
it could
everybody
be,
said they were taking for months.
yeah, just on the run up, that classic NFL style run up of just trying to like get people to drop, get people to fall, all the misinformation out there. A few people were saying things like Arvell Reese going there. I think that would have been a very Jets pick, personally, taking the high upside guy.
He was overdrafted at 5.
Taking the high upside guy rather than the guy that could just play for you right now, like would be a very Jets option to take. But I didn't think it was like too surprising, which is why it's not here. But with Love and, with Adrian Peterson, with Christian McCaffrey and taking a running back there, I guess that's kind of the point, right? Like, Christian McCaffrey didn't win anything with the Panthers. Adrian Peterson, they had great seasons. They got to a Super Bowl, which is great. But Adrian Peterson and the Vikings as well, you don't go out and win here. They haven't gone out and won by taking that running back there. And they are the greatest. But Christian McCaffrey is having his impact now with another team as well. It's for a running back to come in, you need to.
So your argument is you're not a great player if you don't win a Super Bowl. That's your argument.
No, he can still be a great player. Does having a great player do the most for the team here when it's at the running back position?
So your argument is pass up on a generational talent because you don't think it's the right time to pick a generational talent.
Yeah, I mean, my argument is the running back needs all those people, is the position I would say that most needs the people around them to actually have an impact on the team winning football games. So if you look currently, Ashton Genty taken so high, the Raiders hadn't built anything.
Yeah, but they got
them.
A bad offensive line. You're comparing apples to grapes.
But the Cardinals don't have a great offensive line. The Cardinals are not a good football team. That's why they're picking 3rd overall.
They're rated 15th. They're rated 15th. They're picking 3rd overall because they don't have a receiver or a quarterback, and their defense is ass.
Yeah, they don't have a receiver or a quarterback, and they've taken the running back here instead of trading out. Once they're stuck at 3, this is the point here. Once they're stuck at 3, they did the right thing.
People say trade out like there's. How do you know there was somebody offering something worth trading out for, though? We always do this as people. They're like, they should have traded out. We don't know what the trade packages were offered. And if you look at the trades, nobody got a ton for moving anywhere in this draft. Kansas City gave up the most, and I don't think they gave up a ton.
Yeah, and I think, you'd look at it with the Cowboys trading up. The Cowboys, it was a swap position basically, but they had to give up 2 fifths, but then they get their 2 fourths back later and those kind of things. And the once I saw the Chiefs trade package, I said, well, the Cowboys should just trade up to go get whoever they want as well, because it wasn't huge. But I think the Cardinals not being able to trade out is the problem. Once they were there, okay, I kind of get it. They would be reaching to take anybody else. I'm glad for the Cardinals that they didn't take Arvell Reese, for example, which is who everybody was saying they should take when Sonny Styles would be better, personally. And at least, take this generational guy, and it's not a terrible pick. I think it's just a surprise that they weren't able to get out and nobody was offering something to come up and get him. You would think a team that's on a Super Bowl precipice would think, I'll go up and try and get him. I'll give up that extra thing to go get Jeremiah Ford.
Well, on our Yankee and the Brit Facebook page, 10 days ago, I already said the Cards were taking Jeremiah Love. I just don't understand. Okay, so you have Jacoby Brissett, who for some reason everybody thinks he played great last year and he had 1 win, which is very wild to me because everybody's trying to talk like Jacoby Brissett was, but with his 1 win, do we not think he has 4 or 5 wins with all the close games they played if he has a real weapon? And people keep saying running back Jordan Love. He could line up at the slot. He could line up at the X. He can line up at the Y and be better than every receiver on half the teams in the NFL. And then you're talking, I don't know. I think that this guy was the best player in the draft, and you could get him at 3. I think it's a wild take, and I think that me and Daniel Jeremiah were the only ones on this train.
Yeah, and I mean, you guys might be proved right. I think the Cardinals are just so completely filled with holes. But as I say, at pick 3, they actually did the right thing. Once they're sticking and picking, they did the right thing with who they took, because you get that generational talent, you get the highest, like you get the best player on most people's boards. People put Mendoza, but Mendoza isn't more talented than Love. Like his position is more valuable, but he's not more talented than Love.
Also, I don't know if of course the quarterback's more important, but I had Mendoza as my 10th best player in the draft. So I didn't even have him in the top 9, but I get why position pushes him up. But yeah, I think maybe I got more faith in Mike LaFleur than the rest of y'all. Like he spent his whole career with McVay, and his brother isn't the worst coach either. Well, I think his brother's a bad head coach and a great offensive coordinator, but we don't have to pick apart Matt LaFleur right now. But I think Mike LaFleur, and I think you gave him a piece that they can build around when they can't get the quarterback. Like, you can't go get the quarterback in this draft unless you get lucky and it's Beck, right? Like, unless Beck ends up being something we didn't expect, because from what I have gathered, he's a fucking genius when he steps into the classroom. So, like, I don't know, but I don't know what I think they're all preparing for next year. And I think that the Rams fucked up the Cardinals' plans of coming away with a quarterback too.
Yeah, I think with the Cardinals actually won't mind picking in the same spot next year. You know, they won't mind if Love doesn't have a huge effect in their wins column next year if they just play with Jacoby Brissett. They actually, I don't think they would mind at all. But Jay, then the big
I think they win 8 games this year.
The Cardinals.
With 7 or 8 games, yeah. Because I don't think Jacoby Brissett's ass. I just think people overestimated him because he won win and he had all these stats, but it only equated to 1 win. My argument is if you put a playmaker with those stats, we probably see a handful of more wins, because they were in a lot of close games. They just, like, he had good stats. You know, like Jacoby Brissett didn't play awful. He just had an awful win-loss record, and I think they'll be better. And I think when you put McVay's offense into a new team, I think you see just a couple wins off the offense alone, the offensive system alone.
Yeah, and I think that the defense wasn't actually that bad. Like, we were going into the season saying this is like the most consistent a Cardinals team has looked, and, you know, they ended up picking at 3. But yeah, I could see that. I just think they wouldn't be too upset if they were in a similar position next year for the quarterback class.
I turned into you.
Go on.
I turned into you. I'm over here defending the Cardinals. This is usually your take on the show. So somehow I turned into Maddie.
Jay, the biggest shock, I think, in the room came at pick number 4, where Carroll Tate was taken by the Tennessee Titans. From what I saw, I think people were quite surprised by this pick of a wide receiver. You know, the Titans have holes across their roster. Although I think there's a potential, like, why is this so surprising not to give Cam Ward his weapon if you really, really believe in Cam Ward? But Jay, do you think that Carroll Tate was the right wide receiver to come off the board here? And do you think the Titans were right to take a wide receiver off the board here?
To me, this was the worst pick in the top 10. Like, the best player on his team and you draft second best receiver on his team. You draft him 4th overall, and there was a lot of more talent wide receiver wise on the board.
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
I don't have any problem with you giving the player they picked and where they picked them, right? Because why is Tate going 4 when he wasn't even the best receiver on his team?
Yeah, 100%. I think I don't necessarily hate taking the wide receiver, and you take the wide receiver that you think best fits you and what you are trying to build and what you have to offer as an offense. And they've got Dickey, they've got Oman Ayamina as well. So they're trying to build like a consistent wide receiver room there for Cam Ward. But the Titans have so much need for star power in their team that is Tate that star power. And look, I don't think you're going to get anything wrong necessarily drafting in a higher state wide receiver, but the guy who was the most explosive player, the guy who would give them the most star power coming off the board goes a little later on to the New Orleans Saints with Jordan Tyson. If you can get over his injury concerns, then you get that explosive player, and that's what the Tennessee Titans need to add to their wide receiver room. They've got like a nice, consistent, two consistent enough wide receivers there in A Minor and Dickey Dyke is how his name's spelled. So you have that consistency. You're looking for that star power. So get the right wide receiver for you. Choose the wide receiver that you want. That's fine. I don't necessarily disagree with it. I'm just not sure that this was the right wide receiver for them. And they could get so much wide receiver depth later on in this draft. And most importantly, Jake, they need star power all over the place. So they could have had Stoney Styles here. They could have had Arvell Reese. They could have had Caleb Downs as a leader of the defense there as well. They could have gone out and got a player to give them star power somewhere else and get a wide receiver later. So 4th overall, I don't think so. Who would have you put with the Titans here, Jake?
Oh, I'm still caught on the fact that Styles went so late. I'm caught off the fact that to me, the second best player in Caleb Downs went so late. Everybody was, I don't know if they were still thinking positional value, even though everybody's been screaming since the beginning that this is not a draft that you worry about positional value. So I'm not sure what they were thinking, but there's a handful of guys. I mean, I would have picked Dylan Thieneman over him, even though he went 20s. There is guys I would have picked over him in a heartbeat. So I'm not sure what they were thinking. I think they were probably going to go Love. They were convinced they were going to get Love. And then probably about 3-4 days before the draft, they realized they had to pivot.
Yeah, and I mean, it kind of looks like that as well. So yeah, I wasn't sure about this draft pick at all. Jay, once the Kansas City Chiefs traded up, I was very surprised that they went for Mansoor Delane. Although Mansoor Delane makes loads of sense for them after them clearing out their cornerback room. And that was who the cornerback is the position that they were coming into the draft to take. They made it very clear that they were going for a cornerback. And since the draft last night, they've come out and said he was always our guy. Delane was always our guy. So I get like going up and getting your guy, but Jay, could they have just stuck and picked and still ended up with the same guy? Are you surprised that they didn't take some pass rush here or Caleb Downs here? Like, I was confused by this pick in the trade up that they made to go get him.
I'm not, because he's the only first round talent at corner. So like they didn't light up the farm either, move up. And I was shocked at first, but then once it dawned on me, like, yeah, they gave up their whole secondary. And if that's your guy and you target him, you just fucking go get him. Because if you sit there and play around, what were they at 9? I mean, who knows what happens in between there, because there's not a lot of blue chip guys in this draft. This is actually a highly coveted position, and he's the only guy at this position with a first round grade. And I don't think anybody had him graded lower than like 12th. So like, just go get him if you think that that's who you're going to get or who you want.
Yeah, right. It's like, if you look at the teams that come after 6, like the teams that the Chiefs have gone and jumped there. So it's the Commanders, you know, they do the right thing, I think, in taking Sonny Styles, but you don't know. They also need to get younger at cornerback as well. The Saints are probably just on a thing of best player available, right, with their roster buildup. And the Browns probably didn't need to commit anything to defense, but you don't know what the Commanders and the Saints would have been taking there. And with the Chiefs, they have picks in the later rounds. Those picks are not going to play for their team, so they don't need those picks. So they can just go, there's one guy in this draft who is going to play for our team day one. Let's just go get him and make sure we have him in the building. I really like actually what they did after taking a step back to think about it, like later on that day. I think we're both on the same page with that. And then Jay as well, this I think is the biggest talking point, it looks like to me, after the draft, but the Rams taking Ty Simpson at 13 overall. Jay, you really like this pick, so you go for it first.
Yeah, I had Ty Simpson rated as my 16th best player. So I don't think it was a reach. And what we find out today is sounds like the Steelers called the Rams wanting to trade up to draft Ty Simpson. So in that case, if you're the Steelers and everybody's like they should wait and get him later, well, I mean, if you're the Rams, if the Steelers are already looking to trade up to get the guy and you want him, then you go get him. But the only problem is and it is not with the pick, it's not with any of that, McVay did not look happy. Did not look happy that they drafted him. It looked like that was not his pick, and I kind of have an issue if that's what it was, that you don't listen to your fucking head coach, quarterback, whisperer, offensive genius. And I guess it's not because he didn't like Ty Simpson, but he wants to win another Super Bowl, so he wanted somebody. It's the kind of the Jordan Love thing, even though the Packers traded back into the first round, so it makes it a little different. But I like the pick. I think Ty Simpson was a first-round quarterback. I like what he did. I know people don't want to hear this, but if you go look before he got injured, he was playing better than Mendoza. And he was playing better than Mendoza with a shit offensive line. And he was making everything. Got injured. He was the Heisman front runner for the first half of the year, and then he got injured. And it literally, if you watched last year with us on the show, it took me until through the playoffs and the national championship to go, okay, Mendoza's a better quarterback. Like, because I wasn't sold until I watched those last handful of games on Mendoza, because he did great things, but he did the whole J.J. McCarthy fourth quarter thing against the Bears too many times and had shit games through the whole thing. And then when it got to the playoffs, he kicked it up. He took the team on, and I was like, all right, Mendoza's for real. But I don't think there's as big a gap. I think me and Dan Orlovsky are the only two that don't think there's as big and Dan got dragged for it. So I'm really glad I'm not as famous as Dan with that take.
Yeah, and I think with Ty Simpson, right, like they're comparing him to Alabama quarterbacks of the past. You know, like they're looking. Alabama's different. It's different world out there now. Like it's not the same. It's not the same organization now that Saban isn't there, and it's not the same organization now that NIL money is available. Like the reason that Indiana is a fairy tale story. Don't get me wrong, but like they did basically buy in like through the transfer portal their entire team that goes and wins the national championship, because in a world of NIL money, colleges like Indiana are going to do really, really well because their alumni are so rich, just in general. So Alabama, you know, isn't the same. So Ty Simpson, yes, he's an Alabama quarterback, but he's not coming from the same Alabama style that we were looking at before, where it's just lay on a great defense. With the process, I think, is something that I have a slight issue with, and especially with the fact that Sean McVay doesn't look like he wants Ty Simpson at all. And Jay, I agree with you. I think it's because he wants to go and win another Super Bowl. Taking Ty Simpson here feels like, to me, the Rams have already decided their roster is good enough to go and win a Super Bowl. It sounds to me like they decided their roster was good enough to win a Super Bowl this year, which it was. That's a fair process to go through. But, you know, it feels a bit resting on your laurels to go, I'm going to take the guy in 2 years' time when we can push for a Super Bowl right now.
But they went and got their corners in free agency and trade. Yeah. They locked up that defense and made it better. So I would say now their own weaknesses, you need to run stuff from, but that's what the second half of the draft is going to have for linemen. Guys that are great at stuffing the run, but the question comes and they do it on the pass. So I think if you look at it, I think they looked at like, okay, we made these trades. That's our first round pick. This is a luxury. We can get the heir apparent to Matt Stafford. And I mean, look at the Colts. They're still looking for their replacement of Andrew Luck. Like, if you can get your guy and let him sit for a couple years, I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't know. I think it's crazy that people think it's the worst pick ever when I was like, in other drafts, Ty Simpson is the best quarterback in a lot of other drafts. So, like, I don't get where people all of a sudden change the way they evaluate quarterbacks. Or they're like, look at him at the end of the year. Well, did you guys not watch him at the beginning of the year with a shit offensive line? He's super accurate. Yeah. If there's a guy whose mechanics are perfect enough where you sit high school kids down and say, watch this guy and follow those mechanics, it's Ty Simpson.
Yeah, and I think it's also interesting to remember that this was not the Rams pick. This was the Rams pick from the Falcons, was it? This was... the Rams also had another pick. They also
moving
had
up to get their convicted felon.
Yeah. They also have a second. They also had a second first round pick as well. So the Rams go out there and they go, we think that Ty Simpson is the quarterback of the future for us, and they do need. Matt Stafford isn't going to play every single game like this year. Like, realistically, he won't. And, you know, if Matt Stafford stays there for 2 years, then that's fantastic. They evaluated and said, we're just going to take our guy here because we think, like, there's no one else that'll really be a starter for our team here. So let's take Simpson here. They also had another first round pick, which they traded out of later on, but they had another first round pick to play with as well. And then you've also got to remember with the Rams, they don't actually have a backup quarterback right now. Like, Jimmy Garoppolo's probably retiring. So, like, backup quarterback was semi a need for the Rams. And with Matt Stafford being older, then, you know, your backup quarterback becomes more important. So I do like the pick after going through it. I was surprised by the process of it, but I like the pick. It makes a lot of sense to me after sitting back and having a look at it. But Jay, as you say, the one thing, if Sean McVay didn't like it, then that's going to be trouble going forward. Jade, let's talk about your Minnesota. Sorry.
It was just his face. I don't know. Like, he didn't say shit. I was just saying it was just his face. He didn't say shit. And then I do realize that Maddie's not a fan of Stetson Bennett.
I'm not a massive fan of Stetson Bennett, has to be said. But clearly the Rams aren't a massive fan of Stetson Bennett either. Stetson Bennett might genuinely be like, he might genuinely get traded to somebody who needs a backup quarterback and be like that Gardner Minshew style guy, you know, where it's just all vibes coming into the building from there. Could be quite fun. Jay, let's talk your Minnesota Vikings.
If he's not shotgunning beers, but yeah.
Jay, your Minnesota Vikings took defensive tackle Caleb Banks. I think a lot of people were very surprised by this in the draft. They could have had the safety whose name escapes me, Thielemann. They could have had Dylan Thielemann, which I think everybody basically mapped out that that's what was going to happen. So, Jay, what do you make of the Vikings taking Caleb Banks? How has KOC convinced you that this was the right thing to do?
Okay, so with Dylan Thieneman not going to the Vikings, I think a lot of it is, I think they know Harrison Smith's coming back or he would have announced his retirement. I think Harrison just doesn't want to do the early offseason shit, and he'll be there for training camp. So you just leave it out there. Otherwise, he would have announced it. They really like Jay Ward. And after that injury, Jay Ward came on and played good. So I know that they like their safety room, and that safety's deep. That's another thing. So, but everybody was saying Thieneman. It's why I thought it could have been Sadiq, because I think if you hear a name over and over and over again, it's usually not true. But then Sadiq went from the Jets, and so I was like, okay, maybe they go Thieneman. And then, so Banks was considered a top 10 pick until the combine when he re-injured his foot. And the Vikings medical staff has been over it, and Twin Cities Orthopedics is number one in the country for foot and ankles, and that's who the Vikings have. So if they say it's good, then the medical's clear. I get that. If he turns out to what he's projected to be, that's Chris Jones. So that's a great pick, right? Yeah. I just didn't think that. I know everybody's like, oh, they lost Jonathan Allen and they lost Hargrave. They need to go get it. And I said, they got Drake Rodriguez, and Jalen Redmond had 6 sacks last year and was in the top 10 at the second half of the year PFF rating for D tackles. I didn't think he's ever yes, but you think you got a generational talent. You listen to Kevin O'Connell say, we got a top 10 talent at 18. And then he even says, they're like, are you worried about the foot? He goes over the medical and he says, if it wasn't for that foot, we wouldn't even have had a chance to draft. And so I'm like, okay, I get it. It's where everybody falls off at like 12 or 15 with all the players, and they're all second. And you're looking at it like, we have a chance right now to get a guy who was top 10 going to the combine before he hurt his foot. If he turns out to what he's supposed to be, Flores can sit back and not send people every play and do more with that defense. It's great. And then the final selling factor was for me is, we find out Brian Flores wanted this. So if Brian Flores wanted this guy, I trust him.
Yeah, and with the Vikings, right? Like when you have KOC and you have Brian Flores, it's like, okay, in those two guys we trust, you know? Like if it's the pick, if it's like a 50-50 pick, like you're not sure about it, and then you look at the coaching staff and go, okay, yeah, sure. Whatever, like let's move on. You know, the Cowboys.
Or when you find out, or when you find out that KOC did not want Lewis Cine, and Kawasi made that stupid trade with the Lions, and they did not want to make the trade, but Kawasi did it draft and then drafts Lewis Cine, and you're like, oh, it makes sense now. You went against your coaches.
Yeah, and two, like it's the best coaching staff in the NFL, in my opinion. KOC and Brian Flores. You get 2 head coaches for the price of one. Both, one's an offensive genius, one's a defensive genius. So just don't go against your coaches. Jay, I think that I was surprised by it. I didn't really see it coming, but I think it was a good draft pick. When you go watch this guy's tape, like, so I went and watched like just some of his stuff today. I've been on a 12-hour overnight bus across Eastern Europe yesterday. So I was watching some of his tape after he got picked, and I thought, yeah, this guy's explosive, screams Vikings to me. I kind of like the pick as well. And then Jay, the final bit of surprise before we move on to chatting about like post-draft players who might get traded and the biggest winners, the biggest losers, before looking ahead to day 2 of the NFL draft. The Dallas Cowboys traded with the Philadelphia Eagles in just a evil thing to do. Like, you know, giving Howie, don't deal with Harry Roseman. How many more times do we need to say don't deal with Harry Roseman? But Jay, did the Cowboys ruin their draft by giving the Eagles their A.J. Brown replacement? I've seen the Dallas Cowboys somehow called biggest draft losers because they traded with the Eagles. So what do you think on that?
No, I don't think they're the biggest draft losers for that. If you think like, okay, they're going to go up and get a receiver, it depends on how you have that receiver rated and where you think you can get. But didn't the Cowboys trade with the Eagles once before that both worked out for both teams too? Not in like, huh?
It was for Michael Parsons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't remember, but I'm like, didn't they do a trade that seemed to work out for everybody last time too?
Yeah.
Like, everybody can say what they want, and you can hate Jerry, but Stephen Jones. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
The funny story about these picks. So these picks. So the last time the Cowboys and the Eagles traded with each other in an NFL draft, the Eagles traded up with the Cowboys for the Eagles to go get Devontae Smith, and the Cowboys can then pick Michael Parsons at this point.
Yeah.
So trading for a wide receiver and then a guy who eventually becomes a defensive edge as well. And then, so this pick that was traded was the Green Bay Packers pick for Michael Parsons that the Eagles have traded up with to go get a wide receiver, and the Cowboys have traded back to take a defensive edge again. So funny ways how history repeats themselves here. But Jay, sorry, you were talking about Stephen Jones.
I was just going to say, you can think Jerry's dumb, but Steven's not, okay? Stephen Jones and that team, the only thing they do awful is they're too afraid to get in front of a contract, which I don't understand, but they draft well. So I don't really question their draft strategy. They draft well. They draft, develop, don't sign the guy, and then get taken to the cleaners on the new contract. That's what the Cowboys do. If they could fix up that last contract part, they'd be amazing. Like, I just don't. I think that's Jerry. I think Jerry likes those cheap fourth years, but in the long run, it ends up costing you more. So, like, Jerry's got to quit being a cheap ass, but I like what they did. And the Cowboys, to me, well, I'll hold off, but the Cowboys did a great job. I'll hold off on that. But the Cowboys, to me, did a great job. I trust their drafting, and I don't think it's the worst thing to trade within your division. You don't ever give the guy in division the best edge rusher in the game. You don't ever give the guys in your division a top quarterback. I get that. But we're talking about receivers and later round picks. I don't think, or later first round picks. I don't think it's a big deal.
Yeah, and look, I don't love the idea of trading with Harry Roseman, but I really do trust the Cowboys in draft strategy. And when you look at what they did moving up and down in the draft, so to move up to go make sure they got Caleb Downs, they gave up 2 5ths, but then to move back with the Eagles, they got 2 4ths. So, you know, they like recuperate that draft movement doesn't hurt them at all by going up to go get Caleb Downs. And the guy that they selected, I think will turn out to be pretty decent. I don't think it was in the position of need. It's not who I would have taken necessarily, but I think he'll look good. Jay, the Eagles taking Lemon. What do you make of that as wide receiver for them? He is probably the AJ Brown replacement, right? Sorry, can you hear me?
I don't mind the Lemon pick. My thing is, I think Lawrence was a great pick for the Cowboys, and how you hate on your own team's great pick, I don't get, but that's okay. I'll stick up for your Cowboys for you.
I'm not hating on it. I'm not hating on the pick
because AJ Brown's going to be gone. AJ Brown's going to get traded on June 2nd for what we're hearing is for a second round pick.
Yeah. I think with trading up to go get Lemon, I think that's a good pick for them. I think it's a solid pick in terms of going and getting your wide receiver. We know AJ Brown is going to leave it just looks that way as well. And again, in Harry Roseman's talent evaluation is good. But Jay, that brings us up onto our second segment of the show. It's looking at teams that will now trade players after looking at the draft. So after looking at how teams drafted, I've got 3 players that I think are going to get traded. And Jay, we don't need to talk much about this. We've spoken about it a lot already, but AJ Brown is clearly getting traded. How do you think that affects the Philadelphia Eagles?
I didn't hear you.
There you go. You're back. Sorry. There's just a little lag. There's a little bit of lag, but AJ Brown is clearly leaving the Philadelphia Eagles, especially after they go take Lemon. What do you think that does for the Philadelphia Eagles? What do you think that does in terms of them going forward? Do you think they'll miss AJ Brown? And Jay, is it pretty locked on that AJ Brown is going to the Patriots as well? Could another team come in and swoop in and take AJ Brown at the last minute?
I personally think AJ Brown is washed. I think the best of him is over. I think you get a slow, sure-handed guy in AJ Brown. I think the Patriots are going to lose on this trade. I think Howie's going to come out looking good. And I think this is going to be an upgrade at this point because Jason Gray at that point he's washed.
Wow, washed. Yeah, I don't know about washed, although he does remind me more and more every time I watch him of DK Metcalf, right? Like, yeah, all the size is there. Yeah, he's going to go up and body guys, and he's a horrible matchup for people to have. But how much is that translating? Like that, are we still giving him the props of being this athletic freak from 3-4 years ago? I think AJ Brown will be a good thing for the New England Patriots. I think he'll be a good foil for Drake May, that down the field threat that he has. I think it'll be a good move for AJ Brown. He'll actually get the targets and stuff like that as well. I don't think AJ Brown needs as much separation, but so I'm not sure I would go with the term wash. But I don't think the Eagles necessarily lose here. And as always, the Eagles don't really lose when it comes to roster building, thanks to Howie Roseman. So I think with the Philadelphia Eagles, they're getting younger at the position, they're getting cheaper at the position. And I think for them, Devontae Smith and Lemon and Devontae Wicks, I think that will be a good wide receiver room for what they're trying to build, that run first offense. Jalen Hurts isn't flinging down the field the whole time. I think that works really nicely in terms of their roster rebuild, and they're getting cheaper, younger. And Jay, they're getting the noise out of the building most as well, which the Eagles like noise, but last year was crazy. Like the amount of noise coming out of that building was crazy as well.
AJ Brown will have less than 600 yards.
Fuck yeah. Love that. Clip that. Clip it. Yeah, I like that. But AJ Brown washed 600 yards for Jay. I think he'll get more than that as a Patriot, but we'll see.
At least DK Metcalf still got speed. Like, AJ Brown is slow now.
Yeah, I think that AJ Brown still has that down the field threat, right? Like we've seen AJ Brown get the down the field threat, and then Jalen Hurts just hasn't thrown it his way, right? Like, do we just not see it because the ball wasn't getting thrown his way at all? Or is it just a complete lack of separation and we're just expecting Jalen Hurts to throw him open? Is that what you think it is?
Yeah, I watched all last year and I was like, he does not have that step anymore. But Hitman got pretty hot with me a couple times, so I stopped with the AJ lost the step thing because it was a real sore spot as an Eagles fan for him.
The second overall pick is the news. Second round pick for him. I mean, at least it's not a first for the Patriots. So I think it's worth the swing personally for the Patriots. Him going back to Vrabel, I think, is a big thing as well. I think it's probably gonna be one of those moves. That's a win-win-win for everybody. Jay, the Giants have now gone and drafted for their defense, looking at their defensive line. Again, Arvell Reese going to the edge. The New York Giants now have a pretty stacked and expensive defensive line room, especially in the edge. Who's going to be the odd man out in the New York Giants lineup? Are they going to trade away Thibodeau? Are they going to trade away Burns? What's going to happen there for the New York Giants?
Nobody. They're playing Reese at middle linebacker. So, yes, let's pass up Styles to go get Reese at number 5 overall, and let's play him at middle linebacker, even though I was saying it from the beginning, there's no way he should go that high. We don't even know if he can play on the edge. He's an off-ball linebacker that everybody's putting at the edge. We don't know if Reese can play at the edge. I've been saying it and saying it and saying it. And everybody's like, oh, he's going as an edge. And then they go out and they pass up Styles, who to me is a better version of Fred Warner. And they go and get Reese, and they're going to play him at middle linebacker. So good job, Harbaugh. Good job.
I did think that Reese over Styles was an interesting pick for the Giants to make, because you just look at their current depth chart, and it just doesn't really fit. Like the depth chart just doesn't really fit together. Like it feels like they're going to have to get rid of someone. Here with Abdul Carter, Arvell Reeves, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns that they've got there as well. It's like, okay, you might have to get rid of somebody here. Whereas if they took Styles, then they have the middle linebacker set. But, if they're going to play Reeves at middle linebacker, sure, good for them. True Giants behavior. And Jay, finally, the New York Giants, they come out, the New Orleans Saints come out and take Jaden Tyson. What does this mean for the New Orleans Saints? I've seen a few people saying it's now making the room for Chris Olave to get traded. Why? Have 2 good wide receivers for your quarterback who nobody thought was going to be good.
Yeah, I don't get that statement. So as a Vikings fan, we have Justin Jefferson, we have Jordan Addison, and then we drafted Ty Felton last year. And everybody's like, they got to get a wide receiver. They should go wide receiver in the first round. But as soon as New Orleans takes probably the best wide receiver, it is the best wide receiver in the draft if he stays healthy. And then they're like, they got to get rid of Olave. And then I don't mean to be an asshole. I like Chris Olave. I loved him coming out of Ohio State. But what are you going to give up for a guy who's one more concussion away from maybe being able to football?
Yeah, you're not getting enough for Chris Olave to give up on Chris Olave when Tyler Shough had such a great connection with him, like when he's actually there. And you've got the explosive. The issue is what they've taken the New Orleans Saints is they've got 2 injury-prone wide receivers now. So they could be without wide receivers at any point, basically, because of just the injury proneness. But Jordan Tyson, his injury prone is they're football injuries. It's not like reoccur. Like Chris Olave is a concussion thing. Concussions can just come up like from like any freak play, and if it's a concussion, then you're fucked. But Tyson is just like accidents that happen when you're playing football, and it is unfortunate that it happened to him over a certain span of time. They're not like these serious reoccurring injuries, like he's snapped his ACL on multiple occasions or anything like that. It's all footballing injuries, So I think it's a good pick. I think it's exciting for the Saints. And I think the Saints kind of are one of those teams that I think they surprised a lot of people by not just being totally awful. Tyler Shough came in and looked pretty good. The offensive line is okay. And then you now have the potential to go out and be exciting. And you have Kellen Moore, who is a really good offensive coordinator. So give
Travis Etienne.
Travis Etienne. So give your rookie head coach, he's not a rookie, but second year now head coach, offensive coordinating head coach, weapons to play with. Your second year quarterback, weapons to play with as well. I think that's an exciting pick, and I think the Saints could do with being exciting as well, just to get a bit of vibes back around the organization as well. So yeah, I really don't understand the whole it's clearing the landing way for Chris Olave to leave. So strange. Okay, Jay, let's move on to biggest winner and biggest loser in the NFL draft. Let's start, Jay, with the biggest winner. Who have you got as your biggest winners in the NFL draft?
Well, it's your Dallas Cowboys. They picked the second best player in the draft, in my opinion, in downs. And then you go get a guy, and I don't mean this as in exactly to replace Micah's position. Let me put it that way instead of saying to replace Micah, who is great at getting after the quarterback. But guess what else he can do? He can stop the run. And guess what else he can do? He can cover. So I think it was a great pickup. I don't know why people are hating. I think Lawrence was great. Cowboys' best day one draft. That defense gets immensely better immediately.
Yeah, Jay, I was also going to pick the Cowboys as my biggest winners as well. Caleb Downs changed his life in Dallas from the jump. You have that leadership in the spine. The way that they were able to get Caleb Downs is huge. The leadership in the spine of the defense, is going to be really important going forward as well. This idea that he's a low value position because he's a safety. Nico Mamwari last season, Kyle Hamilton, safeties, they're positionless football players. You can have.
I just want to say something quick. For a bad defense, a safety doesn't do a whole lot. For a good defense, it can make them great.
Yeah, 100%. And people will say, well, the Dallas Cowboys have a terrible defense. And it's like, no. Well, the thing is, they actually didn't for most of last season. Once they kind of got their shit sorted out, it's just they're so leaky in the secondary. It doesn't matter what you're doing up front when just everybody's getting blown past in the secondary. I like the player. I like the player Malachi Lawrence. I think he's going to be good. I'm very excited about that as well. I would have maybe taken a cornerback here just because we don't have a pick in the second round. I would have taken McCoy here just because we don't have a pick in the second round, and we do need a cornerback. But you can get a cornerback in the third. That's fine. That's okay.
That's what I was just going to say.
Yeah. You don't have to go and get the second best cornerback.
It's deep at depth. It was light at the top, but it's deep in depth when it comes to corner, right? There wasn't a lot of first round corners, but there is a lot of corners that will contribute in this draft, and you're going to get them into the third round. You're going to get safeties into the third round. You're going to see a run on corners in the second round here too. You're going to see a run on linemen, the guards and centers, but there's value at linebacker here too. So I think the Cowboys just keep plugging away at defense.
Yeah, and I would just take defense basically for every single pick in this draft. But with Malachi Lawrence as well, he doesn't have to play even straight away. That's the other thing. He can just come in and run downs and be a run stuff. He doesn't have to come in and play straight away. He doesn't have to hit straight away because Ezeraku was just got better and better throughout the season. Overshown is going to be back and healthy as well. Rashawn Gary is a good second, he's a decent defensive lineman. And then you've got Quillian Williams and Kenny Clark up the middle. You don't need Malachi Lawrence to play straight away, so they have that time. But since, Jay, you picked the Dallas Cowboys as the biggest winner, and I like that as well, I'll come in with the Kansas City Chiefs. I like what the Kansas City Chiefs did in terms of their draft. They go and get their cornerback. They go get their cornerback of the future, which is a position that they desperately needed, and they get a defensive tackle of the future, which is a position that they desperately needed as well. They just went, we don't need to worry about having loads of picks. We'll just trade into positions to fill our needs, and it's the best cornerback in the draft and a good defensive tackle as well. So I like how the Kansas City Chiefs set up their draft board as well. What do you make of Kansas City, Jay? Okay.
Honorable mention to the Jets. I like what Kansas City did too, but honorable mention to the Jets.
Yeah, I think a fair honorable mention to the Jets as well. Jay, I think I have a clue who your biggest loser is, but why don't you tell us?
Oh, well, I'm sticking in the NFC East. I'll tell you that with the Giants. So the Giants decide to take a linebacker at 5, and they don't even take the best one because they're not even going to move him to D end. And then for me, and I know other people have it differently, but for me, you took the 5th best offensive tackle at number 10. So I just not sure like how to explain that, because for me, I think he anchors well, but they keep talking about his quickness, but but you can have quickness if every move beats you. When you were against the top guys, it didn't look as good as when you were owning these lower school guys. And I mean, his technique's raw. He's not a finished product by any means. It's risky. He plays with high pad level. So I think that's a problem. I still think he was a first round talent. I just don't think he was. I think there was other guys there. Fano for me would have been better. Freeling would have been better. Caden Proctor, I put in the same category as him, as in they both had questions to me where I had these other guys above them because I thought they were more solid. I know exactly what I'm going to get. Plug and play day one guys, but that's just me. We'll see how it turns out. I mean, we're all experts after the draft, and then we don't know if we're right for 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, it's difficult saying biggest losers because we have no idea what these guys are going to look like. But with the Giants, it feels like when you look at their draft, when you look at the positions and you look at the players, you think, oh, yeah, like not too bad. And then you look at the players that they could have had at those positions and you go, okay, like Sonny Styles would have been a better fit. And then the offensive tackle, I actually like them taking an offensive tackle. It doesn't matter if he's development because he doesn't have to play right away for the Giants. So Andrew Thomas is probably going to get injured, so he's going to get some play time. But yeah, I think it was a bit strange as well.
And it's weird because if you think about the Ravens with Harbaugh, when their teams were like lighting shit up on defense, it was Ray Lewis or Terrell Suggs at linebacker. It was Ed Reed at safety or who do they have right now? I'm blanking. Hamilton? No.
Hamilton, yeah. Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah. That's when they were at their best, right? So I thought, okay, they're going linebacker. They're going safety. I thought they'd go safety, linebacker. I thought they were going to go downs and then Styles or stuff, but they could have went the other way and then actually worked out. My way wouldn't have worked out. They could have went Styles and then Caleb Downs, but I don't know. Yeah. I question it because I feel like they took 2 players that way too early. I don't know. The 2 players they took, I feel like were way too early at both spots. But like I said, it's just me and we're all experts today.
Yeah, and Jay, for me, the Pittsburgh Steelers are the one of the biggest losers of this draft as well, largely because of the moves they were trying to make, not because of them taking Max Ianachora. That's a terrible guy.
I was letting you try.
Yeah. But that not because they took him, like developmental prospect kind of reminds me of Tyler Guyton. McCarthy clearly likes that kind of guy, is happy to try and develop him. Okay, I guess. If you need a guy to come and start straight away, but they've tried to move up to go get Ty Simpson. They wanted Ty Simpson. They weren't able to get him. They also wanted to move up to go get Lemon. They were on the phone. Stick and pick Lemon. They picked Lemon basically. They were on the phone to Lemon, and then the Eagles jumped them. And Lemon couldn't pick up the phone to the Eagles because he was on the phone to the Steelers. Like, if that doesn't scream biggest loser to you, then I'm sorry. Like, it's not necessarily that they did anything bad. It's that the two things they wanted just didn't go right for them in this draft, which is a hard watch, man. It's a hard watch.
Yeah, it was funny that Lemon's on the phone and you see his agent trying to switch phones on him, and he's like, "What the fuck is going on?" It's just that face, and he's being told he's being drafted next, and they're like, "No, you're being drafted right now by the Eagles," which is awesome because nothing like Pennsylvania on Pennsylvania crime.
Yeah, right. Like I always wonder how those rivalries work in the NFL, like in-state rivalries. Like, do the Steelers and Eagles hate each other with the fact that they're not in the same conference? They don't play each other as much. Like the Cowboys don't hate the Texans, you know. Sorry, Jake. Just say that. I think your mic got muted.
I was just saying they hate each other.
Yeah,
I was saying that Philly and Pittsburgh hate each other in hockey, in baseball, in like everything.
It does feel like they hate each other as well. Jay, let's finish off by looking ahead to the biggest stories of tonight's draft. We've got which team most needs to solve a need today? Which teams has still got glaring needs that need fixing?
How about you go first? Because when I go first, I am going to answer this question and the next question at the same time.
Okay, yeah. Jay, for me, I was going to take the Dallas Cowboys. For me, they desperately need a corner. They're really in need. But I think the Minnesota Vikings can come into it as well. Like, I think they kind of need. They could kind of come away with a safety here as well. In the Minnesota Vikings, not the most glaring need ever. And then in terms of, you know, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers could just keep on going edge all the time. They took Banks, who should solve some problems, but they could go all the time. And the Falcons, who didn't pick yesterday, they also desperately need help from the edge as well. But Jay, who you got?
All right. Right at the end, you cut out because my computer's being stupid. What did you say right at the end there?
I was just saying, who have you got? Who do you think needs fixed, and what do you think they're going to do about it?
So the San Francisco 49ers desperately need a wide receiver. And they control the first pick going into today. And you ask who the first pick is going to be with your next question. And it's going to be Denzel Boston, the slow-ass receiver that wouldn't even run the 40.
As a wide receiver, not running the 40 is a crazy thing to do, right? Like, surely you have to run the 40, but maybe just not if you're that slow. Like, you're just asking someone to kind of trust you that you'll get separation at the NFL level. Jay, do you think that's actually a good pick for them? I mean, NFL has him ranked as their 23rd best player.
I think he would have ran a 4.6 something if he'd have ran the 40. So, like, I don't get the pick. I get that he catches everything, that he's got a good fucking radius, that he's that dog in the trenches. I still think speed and quickness matter in the NFL. And I think that he would have ran like a 4.6. And we got edge rushers and even a few D tackles.
Yeah, and I think with the 49ers, though, they could wait to fix wide receiver. They do desperately need wide receiver, and, you know, Brandon Ayuk becomes an interesting guy going forward. But they do desperately need some wide receiver help, like especially in terms of the injury. But they could just wait for someone to come to them in the third. You know, the way that they run their offense, it's not necessary to have like the best wide receiver available. And speed is actually quite important. So for me, Jay, I think they could just take the best player available, and that is, Emmanuel McNeil Warren. Like, go get a safety. Imagine putting that kind of safety talent in the San Francisco 49ers defense would be exciting as well. I feel like they could just really they need to get younger.
That's another guy in Warren that they were talking about. Oh, he's going to be a first round pick. And I'm like, how? He played at Toledo. Like, we never seen him against real NFL caliber guys. Like, how the fuck are we rating him in the first or early second? But they are. But I didn't see it. I went back and watched his tape, and I'm like, sure, he played great against a guy who's fucking going to be selling insurance in August. Like, I don't know. It's weird to me.
I think
if they're just saying we're going on pure upside and potential, but I still think beginning of the second round is way too high to go on potential. But I agree with you that he's going to go in that beginning of the first round. It's just another guy that I sit back, and I'm not saying he can't play, but I'm saying, like, to me, you're risking a lot on a guy that could be a starter in the beginning of the second round. And even when they were talking about him in the first round. And the reason I did so much looking into him is because he was somebody that kept getting mocked to the Vikings. And I'm like, why does this keep happening?
If he falls to the Vikings' 17th pick today, what you take him there, surely?
That's about where I think he should go, is the middle of the second round. I feel like you can still get starters at the beginning of the first round, right? Like instant starters. Not that this kid can't start someday, but instant starters. And again, he comes from Toledo. He's raw talent. He's got to be developed. And so I don't know. We'll see, though. And it depends who takes him, right? Like, if you're a team that's like, if you're the fucking Rams, where you got a great team, you can make these types of luxury picks. If you're the 49ers, you don't have Jennings. You don't have Ayuk. What are you doing at receiver? So, like, to me, it depends on who's also drafting in that place. And it's not, I think this kid has a chance. Warren has a chance to be really good. I really question taking him this high because we didn't see him against any top receivers.
Yeah. And I think the difference with the safety here. So I think safety is one of those positions people pick on traits a lot. Like, people pick safety on traits, and I think his traits are good. The thing that you have here is he kind of sets a lot of traps to drive onto the ball and get really exciting picks with the velocity of the way that and the eyes, like with the velocity that quarterbacks throw with in the NFL compared to what he's playing against at Toledo, and what they're able to do with their eyes compared to what he's playing against at Toledo. Will he be able to set those traps as effectively? However, I think he has all the traits to be an exciting safety, and he's kind of screams 49ers safety to me.
Safety's this weird position now, too, because there is no free safety or strong safety anymore. They're interchangeable. And do I think he can move out to nickel like they do with safeties now? Because safety's the new nickel. Yeah, I do. My question comes for him is, can he come down in the box and play linebacker? Because that's something that needs to be done at times from a safety, and that's where I question it. But if we were in the old days and you were like, he's just going to play free safety, I'd be like, go for it. Maybe somebody will just use him like that at first and coach him up as they go on the coming into the box. He's a willing tackler. He's just not great at it.
Yeah, and Jay, I think one of the biggest stories of yesterday going into today is the Buffalo Bills didn't make a pick. They traded back 3 times to come into the second round. What do you think the Bills are going to do? What do you think that they can add at the top of this second round? At the second round today, maybe they'll trade back again. Who knows? But what do you think they were right to kind of trade back? And do you think they have got a guy in mind that they're trading back for and think he'll still be available?
I think they have a handful of receivers or tight ends that they're willing to go for, right? And I think the clump and where they are at is where they're going to be a lot of them that start to go. I also think they're good at moving back and picking up more ammunition because, again, not a top-heavy draft, but a deep draft and guys who can come in and contribute. And they need help a lot on that team. It just gets overlooked because Josh Allen is so good, because their secondary plays so good in coverage, and because they're safeties, and because Cook is one of the top running backs in football. But they have a lot of holes on this team. They need to get better at the defense. They could beef up the inside of that offensive line. I think they were smart because for what they need, it's going to be interior offensive lineman, linebacker, safety, receiver, corner. These are all second and third round where there's a lot of these guys. So I think they're hitting the sweet spot for their needs.
Yeah, and I think with the Bills and just with all the teams at kind of like the end of that draft, like no one seemed to want to pick at the end of the first round unless like the guys trading up like had a need that they desperately wanted as well. So and they weren't giving up.
Seattle.
Seattle did. I think Seattle did a solid stick and pick for Seattle, right? Like you lose Kenneth Walker, you go get a young running back to plug in there at 32, I guess.
Yeah, and he's not going to be your breakaway guy, but he's also a guy that's going to fall forward, and he's going to pick you up 7-8 yards on runs, maybe get you a 12-15 yard run. He's never going to be the 20-30 yard run guy, but I don't think that's what Seattle was looking for anyway.
Yeah, with the Bills, then I think the Bills are like an interesting team with this as well, because I was going to say, when you said like it's not a top heavy draft, I was going to quickly come in and say that and the Bills are like quite a top heavy team, so like you have teams that are quite top heavy, but the Bills are actually not a top heavy team. Like I just had a quick look at their depth chart there. They're top heavy because Josh Allen is fucking incredible. So actually, they could just go out and pick anybody and
James Cook
kind of improve.
Yeah.
Sorry, Josh Allen, James Cook, like do a lot of heavy lifting. And they've got DJ Moore at wide receiver who's come in for them now. I guess
great number
CJ
two.
Allen, really good too. But CJ Allen might be a good pick for them to take a linebacker, like whenever they're injured. I forgot what the name of the linebacker that they have who's always injured, but they're always much better whenever he plays, is there. But so maybe CJ Allen is a guy that they look at in the linebacker position. But yeah, the Bills become an interesting team as well as some of the other teams that didn't pick yesterday, like the Falcons didn't pick yesterday. The Colts didn't pick yesterday. There's some interesting teams. The Packers didn't pick yesterday, for example, as well. But all right, everybody start getting prepared for the draft. It's not long now until the second round. I thought it was crazy yesterday how quick everything was coming off the board, and then they were catching up, right?
Did anybody take Omar Cooper? Didn't go, did he?
Yeah, I think he did at the very end of the draft. No? Sorry.
Because I was thinking Cooper or Fields for the Bills. That's all.
Omar Cooper goes to the Jets. At the
I don't know why I thought.
40.
That's right. That's why I said the Jets did a really. I forgot. I remembered earlier they moved back up. So Fields or Cooper are where I was thinking for the Bills, but now that lowers it or it trims it down for them. But they need a guy to take the top off. That's what I.
Yeah, I think the Raiders would have probably. I think the Raiders are probably quite upset that Omar Cooper didn't make it down to them. Mendoza's guy at Indiana. Like I reckon they're pretty upset that he doesn't make it all the way down to them. But yeah. All right, guys, enjoy the draft. Enjoy the second and third round tonight. This is where it starts to get crazy, and we have like everything so fast, and we're not really 100% sure, like needing to keep on top of it and stuff like that as well. Jay, send us out like you always do.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Hit the like and subscribe. Make sure you hit the notification so you don't miss any of the shows. Montana and it out there. We're in the NBA playoffs. You don't want to miss that. We got must watch Wednesday where we start with the playlist at noon, 10 o'clock, winging it. Those are all Eastern times. All right, guys. One world, one love. Deuces.
Cheerio.
Across the pond! Yo, from the gridiron to the pitch, that's the main switch. I'm breaking down the blitz, you're checking stats in it. He calls it a proper field goal, I calls it a money shot. Giza analyzing the snap, a transatlantic plan for the pigskin. We see the same game with two different sets of proper eyes. From London to the concrete jungle, watching the legends rise. It's the Yankee and the Brit, the transatlantic hit. That's the play action pass, yeah, you know it's a solid fit.